Hello, everyone. Delighted to see you on today's episode of Redesign Your Life Today. Redesign Your Life Today, it's a podcast for people who want to know what real transformation is. And it's all about stories. It's about people who have experienced something very deep in their lives and who can show us that everybody is possible in life. And I'm delighted uh, to have Erica as a guest today on my podcast. And Erica had a very challenging story about fertility, and it's how to overcome these issues. And this is absolutely amazing. And without further ado, I'm going to ask Erica to just tell me about your story, about your background. Just let's go.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for having me on. Um, I want your listeners to understand that my story is, I don't tell my story just for the purpose of a memoir or a good tale. Like, I really want the women out there that are listening that are struggling with infertility to understand that they have so much more power within themselves and to be empowered to take some of the steps to make some of the changes that are going to impact their fertility and um, change their story, right? Change their whole life, really. And I say that humbly, but if anybody was going to be a candidate for the worst impossible way, most unsuccessful to get pregnant, it would have been me. I don't know what that right word is that I'm searching for right now, but I had seven different diagnoses. I was 35, so that is like the death keel in the infertility world. That is when you reach advanced maternal age. So above everything else, above my seven diagnoses, that each one could have prevented me individually from getting pregnant. I was over the age of 35. And my journey was not a surprise to me in that I was collecting these diagnoses along the way, right? So my first one was stage four endometriosis. It took me 12 years to get that diagnosis. Um, Stage four is pretty much as bad as you can get with that particular disease. And it took me, like I said, quite some time to get that diagnosis. And then I had a surgery. So I knew I was going to have problems getting pregnant. I assumed that with these things going on, that I was going to have problems.
Mhm.
So by the time I had gotten to 35, I still was not able to get pregnant. Um, I was had just really started trying because I was newly married, and and IVF was my backup plan, as IVF is everybody's plan B, right? If it doesn't work out, if I can't get pregnant on my own, if I try this or that or whatever, then I'm going to do IVF. Well, the problem with that was is I also then one of those seven diagnoses was diminished ovarian reserve. And so what that means for your listeners that don't know is that I didn't have enough eggs for them to do a retrieval.
Mhm.
So I was already basically producing all the eggs on a monthly basis that I could, and they couldn't retrieve eggs. And so what they recommended to me was donor eggs, and told me I pretty much had better odds of winning the lottery than getting pregnant.
Wow. Okay, and this was, and you say in the first stage. So how did you how did you react to this, and what was your next step afterwards, Erica?
Yeah, well, it's devastating. I mean, there's no one going through an infertility journey that would take that news lightly, and I can sit here and talk to you today and not get emotional about it, but it's very, very hard. It's the death of a dream, right? One of the biggest dreams for women, and I had to. spend some time overcoming that and deciding what I was going to do with that information. And what I decided to do was to ignore that. I ignored that and I said to myself, I'm going to find out what affects fertility, and I'm going to do whatever I can that is within my own power to improve my chances of getting pregnant on my own. And then once I determine that I have exhausted all the resources that I can address on my own, then maybe we'll look at donor eggs. But it never did come to that. One of the things that helped me get to that place after I was given that diagnosis is I had started to learn and started to advocate for myself in the Western medicine world.
Mhm.
Um, for your listeners that aren't familiar with some of the diagnoses I had, I also had uterine fibroids. So all of these diagnoses are very, very painful. They're very debilitating. They're very interruptive into your daily life. And so after I had my endometriosis surgery, then I still had all these symptoms that were interfering with my day-to-day life that I had to address whether I got pregnant or not. And so I had had two laparoscopic surgeries that both ended in a basically an inconclusive diagnosis, but I was still completely symptomatic. So I've had two surgeries.
Mhm.
They're telling me nothing's wrong. I'm in so much pain I can barely work during my cycle. It was very dramatic, and so I decided that I pushed for another answer,
Mhm.
and that answer was a third surgery with a different surgeon, different doctor, a different type of surgery this time, where they were then able to go in and actually see, because of the method that they use, that I not only had uterine fibroids, but I had a handful of them that they removed. And so when I got that diagnosis of, hey, you need donor eggs, I had already realized if anything's going to get done in this situation, it's going to be up to me, right? I'm symptomatic. They're telling me nothing's wrong. I can't live like this. So something has to happen. I have to have a hysterectomy. Something has to give, right? Because I can't just keep living my life like this. And so I kind of tapped into that strength and I said, well, they were wrong about that. And maybe they're wrong about this too. So let me see what I can do on my own. And that's what I try to help women realize in my coaching, in my infertility success series books, is that they can be empowered to take charge of their own health. They can be empowered to push for those answers until they feel better, right? Like, yes, we all want to have a baby, we all want to get pregnant, but so many women are walking around also like I was, that are in extreme pain. They're very symptomatic, and they're kind of being gaslit and told that nothing's wrong. And by the way, you have infertility, but you have all these symptoms, but nothing's wrong, and we can't do anything for you. So that's definitely an area that I try to help people, is to get that personalized care.
You know what? This is wonderful because it reminds me of something. I'm a mental fitness coach, so
Uh-huh.
so I help people finding their saboteurs, these little voices which are not you,
Yeah.
but which kind of run 95% of your thoughts. Some people can be pleasers, controllers, hyperachievers, uh, there's another word, perfectionist, etc. And why am I talking about this, Erica? Because all these voices, it's not you. And our power is that it's really our intuition. We know
Hmm.
deep down what's good for us.
Yeah.
And some other people, doctors, they go from what they learned and they see, but they're not you. So you, and this is really what's amazing for the everybody who's listening. You decided to take your life in your own hands. And just to say, okay, there's only one person I can rely on now, and I've got to follow what I believe.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I just didn't believe I was that sick. I, like you said, I trusted my intuition, and I also, you know, things like personalized thyroid care, thyroid levels, and things like that. Again, I was still symptomatic, even though, my thyroid levels were normal, air quote, normal. I needed to address that too. And so empowering women to get the answers that they deserve to live a better life and get pregnant, right? Not that I am a life coach in any way, shape, or form, but we have to address, holistically the overall body, and that includes mindset too. Um, there's a lot of effort put into making sure that we are not just sweeping those emotions for my clients under the rug every month when they get their cycle, or they have a disappointing procedure or things like that. We can't just keep stuffing that 800-pound gorilla back in his cage. We have to address that so that they can go into the next month with a clean slate, so to speak, and a plan that leaves them feeling empowered and not victimized by this ongoing, issue that they have of infertility.
Mm.
And I have practitioners that help me too. I have an expert in the somatic practice of tapping, and
Ah,
so
it
we
it
use that in the
yeah.
program to help the women cope with the different emotions. That did not come out well. Aroma freedom technique, which is also a somatic practice. So these can all be done. I call them the pocket tools that are included in what I teach, because so many times we just have to put on a face and go about our day. We can't sit and cry in the bathroom when we're at work and we've gone to the ladies room, and we realize that we're not pregnant that month. So they really need these tools so that they can calm their body down, their nervous system down, go in their car, do some of these exercises that are not breathing exercises, but the tapping and things like that are the pocket tools, the aroma engagement that help calm their nervous system down.
And you see, I can relate so much to what you say because you see, you've heard about positive intelligence. Does it ring a bell, Erica? So this is
I don't know.
it's a program, and actually, there's a person, Shazat Shamin, and he created it. He's professor at psychology at Stanford University, and this is really where he's helping people, and I'm teaching this as well, to again to understand who you are in the what is running these programs I was talking about. And actually, when you, for instance, when you have if you are a controller, some people are controllers, they want to control everything. Anyway, most of the symptoms we have, they are due to our youth, to the first 7 years of our life,
Uh-huh.
because we learning things as babies from our parents. We're learning life. We are like a blank sheet, and we are doing what's expecting from us. So very often we are taking habits. We are like it's coming in without filter. We are like in hypnosis. And then for us it's the norm, when if you're, so imagine that your one of your parents says something like, oh, it's not good what you did, it's not nice. No, you feel a big emotion, and this
Mm.
emotion is going to stay with you all your life. And why I'm talking about this, because you see, when you say that, I mean, and obviously holistically we know as well that a lot of, if not all, physical conditions are linked to emotions one way
Mhm.
or another. And very often when we go deep in the emotions, this is where we can do something important, because you were talking before about calming the nervous system. It's
Yes.
exactly what we do with this. We do like PQ reps. It's, for instance, you touch your fingers, and it's really about mindfulness. It's about
Yes.
getting back to this moment whenever something happens. Could be a sad, yeah, you can have pain, of course, but how do you calm it down? And then when you start grounding yourself, it could be by listening, by watching, by touching. All of a sudden, there's you're feeling better. So it's about controlling, and it's about controlling this part of the brain where we learned not to react but to respond. You see, really, it's
Mhm.
because obviously we are controlled by our thoughts, but once we are able to acknowledge them, we can reply to them differently. So I'm
Right.
just mentioning it because you said about these techniques, and this was a question
Yeah.
I would have for you. And do you do as well like kind of group coaching where you have different moms together having the same issues and they can talk together, for instance?
We don't. It's such a personal and painful thing. I found that the women just, it's too taxing for them to be together in a group setting. It's a very, very isolating and deeply, painful place to be in, to be a woman, to want a child, and to basically have your body betraying you. So I find that just coaching them one on one and allowing them the space to have tools to be able to support themselves
Hmm.
is what works best.
Okay. No, no, I understand that. You see, I was asking the question in a way, I don't know if I formulated it correctly, but you see, sometimes when we have an issue and when we are part of a community, you know, I'm not talking about coaching, but then like could be Facebook group where
Sure.
people can share about their
Yeah.
things. Again, they share whatever they want to share, but if another person says, "Oh, I had the same thing," and that they can't start
Yeah.
discussing, and all of a sudden they feel first understood and heard, and perhaps they can
Mhm.
give support to others.
Sure.
So, and tell me about your books, Erica. So you've written several books. Can you tell the auditors a little more about that?
Yeah, so it's the Infertility Success series, and it's 4 books. And the first 2 books, these are all collaborations, by the way. So it's my story, and then groups of authors for each book, of course. But the first 2 books are about women's infertility journeys, and we're not telling our stories in the form of just memoir for memoir's sake. We really all dug very deep into our journey, and as we were telling the story, we stopped and we said, "Hey, I wish I had known this before I did this procedure. Here's my best tip. Make sure that you get this test done. Ask your doctor for this test before before you do that procedure." And so this allows the reader to connect with different stories. Some of them are secondary infertility, some of them are an IVF or an IUI journey. There's women that did raw food diets to help conceive. So there's all manner, and there's some donor egg stories in there too, but really just like their story, what they wish they had known. Like you're sitting down with your best friend who has the same thing going on that you have going on, and you're like strategizing. Okay, I got through it and you're going through it, so this is what I'm going to tell you, like all my best tips, so that you can not have the heartache that I went through. I wish I would have known this, I wish I would have known that. And in the end, what we're trying to do is save them the emotional cost, but also the financial cost as well, with sharing these stories and connecting with the authors in this way. So that's Infertility Success, Stories of Help and Hope for Your Journey. And then it's Infertility Success, More Stories of Help and Hope for Your Journey.
Mhm.
And there's some amazing stories in there as well. There's my lead author in the More Stories book was an ultrasound sonographer. So she worked in reproductive medicine, and she had one child, and then she got secondary infertility. Well, she ended up going from a whole carousel of doctors who told her everything about her symptoms, from it's your imagination, you're crazy, go see this doctor. She was tested for so many things. And in the end, it was a $10 antibiotic that
Oh,
helped her
wow.
go on to conceive not just one more time, but she has 4 beautiful daughters now, almost back to back. Because she went through IUI. She was being trained. She knew because of her training she was being transferred when her lining was too thin and things like that. And so I want to just mention this before I tell you about book 3 and 4, is that, when we're talking about reproductive medicine, and we're talking about infertility, there is definitely a place. My surgeon was great. There are women that have certain things that are going on with their body that require them to have reproductive medicine, but there's been a big push over the past 15 years into reproductive medicine before any other avenue is pursued at all, any other testing. And what women have to understand as consumers, and where I see a big gap, and that's where I come in, I'm this gap filler, is that women expect when they go to the reproductive endocrinologist for them to tell them why they can't get pregnant and figure out and do detective work. And that's not what they do at all. They put them through a series of lab protocols using hormones and other medicines for the result of conception. And they're not looking for the root cause, and they're not trying to understand why you can't get pregnant. I think it's a big gap in knowledge for women seeking reproductive medicine, because if you don't address those root causes, it's less likely that your procedure is going to work anyway. And so I'm a big advocate for that. And my clients are sometimes going through reproductive medicine, and sometimes they're looking for natural conception. But if you're not addressing these underlying root causes, we know statistically it's going to affect the outcome. So I wanted to just say that, because I'm not against reproductive medicine, but there is a way bigger push now, before testing is done. And women expect personalized care because they're paying out of pocket. But they're not getting that either. And that's also a misconception. The doctors, just like many, many other specialists, are very constricted in what changes they can make. And that's because a lot of these clinics are owned by big conglomerates now. So they might be, XYZ brand and XYZ brand and XYZ brand over here, 3 different offices under 3 different names, but they're really all doing the same protocol because they're owned by the same, parent
Mhm.
company. So it's really, part of my passion is to help educate women so that they can make better informed choices.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Erica. And there's one word which resonated with me a lot, which is to find the roots of the problem.
Right.
See, I mean, in a lot of Western medicine, we try to, it's big pharma, procedures, doctors, etc.
Yeah.
But it's really just healing or trying to heal the consequences, but not the causes. What causes it? And when
Right.
we do that, I don't know, have you turned perhaps to like Eastern countries, like I mean India, or where
Yeah.
they've got another approach of life.
Well, sure. Acupuncture is widely used in fertility treatments now, and acupuncture is something that helped me conceive as well.
Hmm.
So it's something that I recommend to my clients, but it's not, again, it's a tool,
It's a
but
tool,
it
yeah. Uh-huh.
often doesn't, it's not able to address all of the things, right? But we can use it as a tool in our toolkit. And I do highly recommend acupuncture.
No, very, very good. And before we spoke a little bit about okay, breathing, importance of
Yeah,
breathing. Is it something which is there as well? Because, they are like, I don't know if you've heard about soma breath or,
sure.
and, there's so much which, I mean, people say that we have by far the biggest pharmacy in the world in our body, but we don't use it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
breathing.
Yeah, breathing, all of that comes into play. Just oxygenating your blood. And, I encourage my clients, to interact with like gentle movements, walking, yoga, stretching, things like that. I should probably add breathing to my
No.
program.
No, thank you so
Yeah,
much. And
there's a
so,
lot.
yeah, there's a lot. And so you say and you've got other books as well, Erica?
I do. So, book 3 focuses on the early impact of motherhood after an infertility journey. So, it's infertility success to postpartum mess the truth that nobody tells you. And in the process of going through the writing with these collaborative authors for books 1 and 2, we realized that there was a shared experience of being isolated from our peers in early motherhood. So, when you're going through an infertility journey, you're isolated from your peer group because they get pregnant easily, or they kind of don't know what to say to you because you're going through procedures and you're not getting pregnant and you're sad, and things like that. It's a um, very isolating time for women. But then they get pregnant, the whole time that they're pregnant, they are often feeling like that they're going to lose the baby, or that they're going to die during childbirth, or that the baby is going to die during childbirth. They have all these, very traumatic thoughts that are amplified by their infertility journey because they have had miscarriages, many of them, and things like that. And so then they have this beautiful baby, and they're the ones in the world of the Facebook groups and the world of women with infertility. They were successful, they won the prize, right? And people look at that baby like a magic wand. It has taken away all the trauma and all the stress and all the massive amounts of debt. And well, you got what you wanted. And it's very isolating because they don't feel like they can say to someone, yeah, this is a lot, motherhood is hard, my baby's not sleeping or not eating, or this is going on, because they feel very much that they can't complain because they're one of the lucky ones, right? They got what they wanted. And so many women never get to that point. So it's really just about the reality of motherhood after an infertility journey, and how to, again, address those things. All the books really are about shining a light in the dark places where people feel shame and feel
Mhm.
like they don't have a voice, right? So many women that go through infertility are not on social media at all, because it's just so very painful to see the pregnancy announcements or the birth announcements or this or that, and they just stay off social media. So these books are a way to reach them in the privacy of their home. They can, connect with women similar to what they would in a group setting, but without being able to control that, being able to filter what they're seeing and how they're interacting with those stories. And they're great for families who have loved ones that are going through infertility. I think that it cannot be overstated that people don't understand the depth of the grief and the mental toll that it takes. But when they read someone's story and they say, I told my husband, who I love, that he should divorce me and go and find a woman who can give him a child. That's like the depth of despair. It hits different, right? It's going to hit differently if you're the mother of the daughter that is going through infertility. It's going to hit different if you can read these women's different journeys and stories and understand better the depth of their despair and their emotional state.
Wow, man. It's very profound. And, something came to mind as well is that obviously we talk about, feminine, well, infertility, but if I understood properly, with men, it's a big issue as well. That
It
now, because
is.
of the environment, because of different thing, the how do you call it? I don't know if it's the right word. I'm French, so, but the richness of the semen is not very,
Yeah,
it diminishes with some men, and sometimes the issue comes from the man that
that's right.
that they need to investigate as well, because it's so it and is it done enough, do you think? When they're imagine people, okay, they try to have a child and they can't, and
Mhm.
and some people would assume, it's I wouldn't say the responsibility, but basically, it's really with the woman, but can
Sure.
very can really be with the man as well.
That's right. Yeah. About a third of the time, it is male factor infertility. And again, there's a lot of things that you can do to improve the sperm quality and, help that along with supplements and that sort of thing. So
This is interesting as well. So, do you sometimes as well speak to men or not? I mean, is
I'm,
it in the
I
setting?
do have. Yeah, I do have support. It's more ancillary through the woman. Where I'll have blog posts and I'll have supportive information on supplements for the men. So they get a lot of value in that, right? But I'm not coaching the men as much, one on one as I do the women. But
No,
there
no,
are
I.
some tools as a couple, that I can pass along. Um, through my clients. But yeah, and then book 4 is Infertility Success Stories of Faith and Miracles. And that is a faith journey of, again, just shining a light in those places where people feel ashamed. So it's either, their struggles with God, whether they are strengthened in their faith or the infertility journey made them feel far from God. It's just stories of how they coped with that with their in relation to their faith.
Mhm. And are there some particular examples you can share? I mean, about, really resilience and, so that our listeners, see that everything's possible in life.
Yeah. So, by the way, the authors, because I know you have an international audience, the authors are from all over the world. Some of the authors are from Ireland. I have many authors from South Africa.
Yeah.
I have, what's the other country? There's a couple other countries, but
Perhaps the UK, perhaps as well, no?
not the UK.
Not the UK. Okay.
Not the UK.
Not yet, but now
Everything's
with
a
me.
little bit different over there, with what kind of choices you're able to make in your healthcare and that sort of thing. It's very hard for the women there. In the UK, they're told that they have to have 3 miscarriages before they can have additional testing.
Wow.
So they literally, the doctors, look at the women and say, 3 of your children have to die. And then we'll see. We'll do some blood work. It's very crippling there. So um, not
So,
not a lot of latitude from what I understand. But I have an author in South Africa who has 10 years in between her children, and she's my lead author in Stories of Faith and Miracles. So she had primary infertility. It took her 10 years to get pregnant the first time, and then they wanted a sibling, and they tried for another 10 years, and then she has 2 sons 10 years apart, due to infertility. And that is a special kind of persistence, and that is a special kind of hope. And she really talks about her faith journey through that.
it's beautiful. Beautiful. And about you, Erica, how many children do you have again?
Yes, I left you on a cliffhanger, didn't I?
Yes,
So
exactly, because you
um,
see, now let's talk about you.
yeah. So after all of that, and after the fertility doctor told me that I had less than a 1% chance of conceiving with my own eggs, I went on to get pregnant the first time at 36. And then
Mhm.
I had twins spontaneously. None of this with any reproductive medicine. These are all natural with my own eggs. I had twins at 39. And then I actually had a miscarriage due to medical mismanagement at 41. And
Mhm.
then I call him my last good egg. He was born just before my 43rd birthday. So almost 7 full years after I was told that I didn't have enough eggs for a retrieval.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
All
you've got
4
two pairs
sons.
of twins, yeah? Is that
I have a
it?
set of twins. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And so when you take a step back and remember that, what's the advice you would give to our listeners there? When you were at the stage where you think, oh, am I going to have children? And when you see where you are now, what did it teach you?
Yeah, it taught me that what my body was telling me mattered. I had a lot of symptoms.
Hmm.
So it taught me to pay attention to my body. It taught me to advocate for myself in the medical world. And really, it has taught me, to advocate. Not only it impacted myself, but now I can advocate in a different way for my children and my family, right? So we're all much healthier for the experience. And, doctors, nobody knows your body better than you do, right? And nobody is going to care about your pregnancy more than you do. So you have to take some responsibility, and even if it's outside of your comfort zone, and learn about labs. I mean, we have so much resources at our fingertips now, right? And most of the time the labs come directly into your email box, and you've got a portal and all that kind of stuff that you can look at. And again, I was revisiting one of the chapters last night of my lead author, and her nurse practitioner had told her that one of her labs was normal, and she said something in her said, "Oh, I'm going to go look at that myself." And it absolutely was not normal. So you have to take some responsibility. You know, it's not people being bad people, it's people being busy people. People make mistakes, right? And there are things, nobody's going to care about your pregnancy as much as you do. So if you want to move forward, it's up to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said something like, listen to your body. And this
Yeah.
would say so much. This is an expression I use the whole time as well, Erica. I mean, it's your body's talking to you. So, and again, each pain, it's associated to something, and when you really go deep, you can learn so much, and the things happen afterwards. People say, "Oh, are you surprised?" Well, we can feel very often the first symptoms. We can. It's just sometimes we don't want to, but
Yeah.
the intuition is something absolutely marvelous. It's there.
Mm.
It's always there. But
Yeah.
because we are used to just think with our mind
Yeah.
rationally, like doctors and this is, I mean, before there were no doctors. I mean, if I understand correctly, in China, a good doctor is somebody who makes sure that you are not sick.
Yeah.
You see? So when we look at this in this, when we take care of ourselves, I mean, physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually, this is when we are I guess, in a position where things become easier naturally.
Right. Yeah.
Not saying it's always the case, but it's really the state of mind must be so
Yeah.
important as well there in
And good mental hygiene too, right? We have
yes,
to we have to guard our thoughts, right? So there's, I have mental hygiene exercises is what I call them, that I have my clients do, strike through journaling and things like that, because we have to believe that it's possible, first of all. The woman has to believe, she has to have that hope. So,
exactly. And when you say about mental hygiene, obviously I talk about mental fitness. I'm sure there are a lot of similarities, but talk about
yeah.
journaling, about practicing gratitude, really being
Hmm.
grateful for all what you have already. And
Yeah,
when we
absolutely.
are when we are there in the morning, we go up, we just open the eyes, and first we are alive, and you see what's outside, and you can go out. And when we appreciate every moment of life now, and when we live in the present moment, things are changing so much. I'm talking about somebody who didn't do always that, uh,
Yeah.
and now I really learned to calm down and to appreciate. And since that, my life has changed a lot. When I said I'm practicing this so positive intelligence reps, these exercises, I said positive intelligence. I encourage listening to just to read what it is, because it's
Yeah.
when you do that, there's an app, and every day you can do exercise. And whenever you feel stress, you just do one or two little exercises, and then you ground yourself. You see, so it's very powerful. So, and it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Erica. And I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story and inspiring women that never give up in
Yeah.
life, do the
Thank
work,
you.
and yes, it's. I mean, it's so, of course, I encourage everybody to connect with you. And so, what's the best way to connect with you, Erica?
Yeah, the best way is through my website. It's Erica with a C, so it's Erica, and my last name is Hoke, Hoke. So you can remember that by like hope, but with a K, right? That's what I like to say. So um,
And,
yeah,
and
so it's ericahoke.com, and I have a lot of free resources on there for people to download and connect with me if they feel like that's a good fit.
well, absolutely. And of course, all your details will be on the, will be available for everybody to see. So, any last word, Erica, you would like to say? Something we have not covered?
Well, I always say just because a doctor tells you that they can't help you, it doesn't mean that you can't get pregnant.
Absolutely, exactly. So, well, thank you so much. I mean, it's been
Thank
really a
you.
pleasure to have you there. And for our listeners, please reach out to Erica because, I mean, as you can see, she's a wealth of knowledge. And this is really, yeah, it was a treat to have you today with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. So, and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.